This is John Kenneth Galbraith, world-renowned economist in the mid-80s, made this statement. Where socialized ownership of land is concerned, only the USSR and China can claim company with the United States of America. Think of that statement. And from the time that he said this in the mid-80s, China and now Russia have been trying to liberalize the use of property because they know that's how you produce wealth. The more choices I have with respect to my property, the more wealth we can create. And we've been going the other way. We've been going the other way. So think about this. I used to work for the mayor of the city of Osaka in the International Relations Department in Japan. In Japan, W. Edwards Deming is something of a saint. So I see some heads nodding, right? Total quality management, just-in-time inventory. This is the guy, right? Think about this statement. Think about this. Every system is perfectly designed to achieve the results that it gets. Right? Every system is perfectly designed to achieve the results that it gets. What results are we getting? We have a system problem. Right? So here, let's talk about some of these results. Arizona, $31.5 billion in revenue. Now, of course, we don't budget all of the revenue that a state has. That's some magic of government. But the revenue, the total revenue of the state, $31.5 billion, 16.3 of it comes from a federal government that's broke. I'm feeling really good right now. Arizona or Utah's only 45% depend on the federal government. Arizona's 52. 52% of your revenue comes from a federal government that's broke. It comes from a federal government that has a vertical curve on its accumulation of debt. It comes from a federal government that is overspending the deficit, right? The debt is the accumulation, 17 trillion. That's just the official debt. You still have the unfunded obligations that go into the hundreds of trillions. The annual deficit, the annual overspend, what we hear in the headline numbers is $1 trillion. Now that's horrible, don't get me wrong. Any idea how long it takes to count to $1 trillion?
Lifetime.
Right, lifetimes? 32,000 years to count to $1 trillion, right? On a generally accepted accounting principles basis, the way we have to do our accounting in our businesses and our counties and our states, you book your obligations. You have to have the money to cover the obligations that you incur, right? We have 10,000 baby boomers retiring a day. And so you book the revenue, you book the expense for that obligation. Federal government doesn't do that. They're the only one in the nation that doesn't. Everybody else, if you don't do it, you go to jail. On a generally accepted accounting principle basis, booking all of the obligations, the annual overspend is something north of $5 trillion a year. And this is how we're taking care of it. Right? Didn't we learn that? If you don't mind, can we take questions at the end? Imagine what your parents and grandparents would have said if you said, hey, you know what, I'm just going to go along with pretending that we can print prosperity. That's what we're doing. We're just going to print. We're going to borrow and print prosperity. We're not going to do this. We're not going to control property and work and labor and control and then exchange. We're going to pretend that we can print prosperity. $85 billion a month. How long till we run out of runway? How long until the US dollar, that is the reserve currency for the world, which is the only reason that we can pretend to print prosperity, is no longer accepted by nations of the world for the real stuff that they produce? I don't know. My guess is time is running short. In fact, all of the nations of the world, hundreds of them have tried this experiment. None of them have succeeded. They all fail miserably. And we're very far down that runway. Some of the other results that we're getting in this system. States in the West have the hardest time to fund education because counties like Gila have 3.8% taxable land. How do you have nowhere else to go. You have nowhere else to go. Matt, if we could cue up the little 1-minute video of Congressman Rob Bishop.
Control. Now I want you to look carefully at this map. See where the red is, and then I also want you to look at this particular map. States in red are the states that have the hardest time funding their education system. That is the slowest growth in education. I hope you realize there is a similarity between the two particular maps, because the bottom line is individuals in the West pay more in state and federal taxes than in the East. There are more kids in the West. We have larger class sizes in the West. Our education system has a harder time to fund itself in the West because this map prohibits us from developing our property taxes, developing our energy royalties, developing high-paying jobs with income taxes, so kids are hurt in the West. I'm sorry, this map and this situation means that kids are underfunded. Can I get 50
seconds?
Gentleman's recognized for 30 seconds.
Kids in the West, their education is underfunded, their teachers' salaries are depressed, and my retirement is threatened because of this particular situation. You control. Now, I want you to look carefully.
Thank you. This is where we are. Now, 237 years ago, we solved a very important question, and we did it in a way that no other nation ever has. We solved the question of whether we can govern ourselves or we must be governed by some self-anointed governing angel. And by virtue of a revolution, we answered the question that is part of our American DNA, that we can govern ourselves. That question has already been decided. And yet, with our children, we have the opportunity to govern ourselves, and this is where we are in the West. Now, I'll tell you that when I'm up in Idaho, speaking in Idaho, they say, yeah, no, that doesn't reflect us. The best answer I have from them so far is that there was some one-time anomaly, one-time surplus of funds, and so in the year that this data came out. If you look at North Dakota as well, we're going to talk about North Dakota a little bit. North Dakota now is putting billions of dollars right into classrooms. They're putting billions of dollars into capital improvement of schools and roads. They have thousands, tens of thousands of jobs just looking for people to take them because they have access to all their lands and they get 100% of the royalties from what comes off their lands. So we also have this situation. Top map, wildfires more than 250 acres. Look at the similarity. Come on, there's no similarity there. What are you talking about? I'm sure it's just a coincidence. Wildfires more than 250 acres, and then our Western States Verizon map. It's incredible, isn't it? This just came out last year. Last year, the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security sent criminal activity alerts out to all of the state foresters throughout the West. When they captured Osama bin Laden, they found it. They got a treasure trove of documents. In the documents, they found the terrorism plans to use wildfire as a form of jihad, and that they're publicizing throughout their networks. We're being warned by the FBI. They are publicizing throughout their terrorism networks to use wildfire as a form of jihad. And this is the terrorist map. Because we've given them the fuel. Think about this for a second. I see a few cowboy hats in the room. So suppose you've got a pen or a corral that holds about 40 or 50 head of cattle. But you get the bright idea that you're going to put 500 head in there, and you put a 55-gallon barrel of water, and that's it, and you just leave them. They're going to get sick, they're going to die, right? You put 500 head in there, and they're going to get sick, and they're going to die. Think about our forests. An acre of forest land in the West has a sustaining capacity of about 50 trees to an acre. And right now, federal forest policies say you can't harvest a tree, and we have 700, 800, 1,000 trees to an acre, all with a finite amount of water, and those living organisms are going to get sick, and they're going to die. And they're dying all over the West, and we still can't harvest a tree even after they're dead, in most cases. And so now we have dead wood sitting in the forest all throughout the West, just waiting for a lightning strike, or otherwise. And now the fires are burning in at an intensity that they never have before. We've got the crown fires that, when I grew up in Tempe, And, you know, we used to go up into the White Mountains to get away from the heat. And I was here about a year ago up in Apache County with Supervisor Weller and others up there looking at the Wallow Fire and what happened there and how devastating that was. 500,000 acres. And as I'm driving home, I'm driving from Show Low through Payson, and I called Supervisor Allen and said, what in the world is this? I don't remember this. It looks like a moonscape. He said, oh yeah, that's the fire we had, what, 10 or 15 years ago. It's still not regenerating because the fires now are burning so hot with all that fuel buildup, they're sterilizing the ground 6 and 10 feet deep, decimating the watershed for generations, decimating a renewable resource for generations that used to go right into schools to fund education, used to go right into local communities, used to produce jobs that increase the tax base. Environmentalism? Really? This is happening right now. We can't afford not to manage our own lands. The environmental destruction that's out there right now.